Welcome back one final time to Capital Tonight. A new report from Effective New York is the latest call for the state to take on a greater share of Medicaid costs. According to this report, counties in New York are paying more than in any other state, and it is driving up property taxes as counties try to keep up with rising costs. So Effective New York argues that the state should take on full responsibility for paying for the program eventually. Joining me now to explain more is the group's new upstate director, John Sullivan. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
It's a delight to be here.
Well, let me ask you this before we even get started on the report. What made you decide to say yes to this proposition by Mr. Samuels?
You know, I met Bill at a constitutional convention confab in Portland. In fact, your dad was one of the speakers.
He's very involved. Yep.
I'm very interested in constitutional reform and in reform generally. So we've been talking back and forth over the last several months, and I actually considered running for Congress at one point. And you know, it's all about the money today.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a certain entry-level amount, you can't be considered. And so I thought, okay, I could work for Bill Samuels, I could run for Congress. I can go around the state, and I can advocate for important reforms. I love communicating with people. I love giving talks. I love feedback. I'm a former local elected official.
Mayor?
It just seemed to be a good fit.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, we've spoken to Bill, and he's very critical of the Cuomo administration. We'll get into that in a second. But his weakness of Effective New York, I think, was a lack of an upstate presence.
Yeah.
And so now he has one. And
yeah, essentially, I think I'm the guy that's supposed to fill that bill. Hopefully I'll succeed.
Well, and he plans to be very involved in this election year, yes. And our expectation is eventually there will be ads, there will be a campaign trying to argue basically that the governor needs to move a little bit more to the left on various policy issues, although this is not a left issue, Medicaid takeover of
yeah, I mean, obviously the Effective New York has a number of issues that they're focusing on. I've been asked to focus on one particular issue, and that is the necessity to change the way we fund Medicaid and to be more like all the other 49 states that do not foist upon local government the responsibility of funding it, and then tell them, not only does the state of New York tell you what you're going to have for dinner, they order it for you and then they give you the bill. You know?
Right, and it's very expensive, although the state has been slowly taking over some of the increase in Medicaid costs.
Bits and pieces, dribs and drabs, and it's time that the state stood up for true, real property tax reform, particularly in upstate New York. There would be a dramatic drop in county property taxes were there to be thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Were there to be a state takeover of Medicaid. In Oswego County, my home county, 58% of the property tax levy goes to fund Medicaid. Imagine what the county legislature of Oswego could do with 58% of its property tax levy. They could build roads, bridges. You know, they could do economic development projects.
Well, instead,
jobs.
Yes, a lot. But instead what we see, I mean, the governor basically has said, and certainly you're not the first to make this recommendation. I mean, the county executives have been clamoring for this for some time.
Yes.
We've had various different senators in here proposing this as well. And the governor says we can't afford it. That's what the governor says. Well, I'm just putting it out there.
I beg to differ with him. I have great respect for the governor, but he's wrong. He's not only wrong, the proposal he's making, this tax freeze proposal, is such a convoluted, cockamamie approach. In one county, Oswego again, it would result in the average homeowner getting about a $16 rebate after the ifs, maybes, buts, and ands are all answered. It's an accountant's dream. It's a lawyer's dream. It's a nightmare for the taxpayers. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Do something that's going to have a dramatic impact on upstate New York's real property tax rates.
Well, how much would it be, though?
Well, we're suggesting that if he took the $1.4 billion and simply applied it this year in, let's take just the 57 upstate counties to begin with, okay? Apply it, there would be a dramatic drop in the real property tax. I think the estimate is about 44% on the average. Okay, it should not be a one-year deal. So our proposal essentially, I call it my 8, 8, and 8 talking points. $8 billion, 8 years, and 8 good reasons to do it. And so my job is going to be to go to Rotary clubs and county legislators all across the county legislatures and preach the gospel. And I'm prepared to do that, and I relish the opportunity.
It is true. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, it's 50% federal. This is very rough, right? 50% federal,
Yep.
25 state, 25 local.
Well, it's down to actually about 16%.
Okay.
But even that, I mean, in Erie County, it amounts to 97% of the real property tax levy.
But the governor, the administration is revamping Medicaid. I mean, part of the reason when we got the $8 billion waiver was so we could take the money that they're saving through the revamping of the program and reinvest it in the program to make it, to move it more to managed care, really, but to make it leaner and meaner and more reformed.
Well, you know, they moved some money in to cover administrative costs. That's about it. Mario Cuomo, when he was governor, proposed a state takeover of the Medicaid
This is a long
costs.
time ago.
This is an idea, we believe, whose time has finally come.
You know, it's interesting. I don't want to change this too dramatically, but I do, since we have you here, want to briefly just ask you about the 21st Congressional District. You mentioned that you had thought about a run and you decided not to. There was a threshold of money, it seems like. What was it?
$200,000.
Okay, so what you're saying to me is that the candidate that they selected is a gentleman named Aaron Wolf, says that he can put up $200,000?
I can't testify to that. I do not know. I can only tell you that I was told in 2009 by the DCCC that was the threshold.
Oh, could be more by now.
And you know, the reason it's more is that the number of competitive districts have shrunk. So that there are really only about 100 or fewer than 100 competitive races. So when the control of the Congress is at stake, the money goes up. There's in fact a study that says the cost of the average congressional campaign has increased 330% since 1968, and only 60% have Senate races increased.
Do you believe, though, that the Democrats, with this candidate that they've selected, have a shot at holding the seat? Because this is a gentleman who refused to sit for media interviews, finally did show up in Watertown, said he'd never been there before, and did talk, but didn't talk a lot in terms of substance.
You don't often get a second chance to make a good first impression. He's apparently a very talented documentary filmmaker. I hope he can make a good documentary film about his congressional race. I'm not going to second guess him. I don't know the gentleman. I assume that his heart is in the right place and that he is going to work hard and introduce himself in his own time frame. It's unusual and, to me, I think problematic the way he's approaching it, but we'll see what happens.
Are you sorry that you decided not to do it?
I am not sorry in the least. I'll tell you why. This is a great opportunity for me to take my 40 years of experience in government, my experience as a county legislator. I was 6 years a county legislator. I was a mayor for 4 years. I understand that local government has an important role to play, and their hands are being tied because of, in large part, state mandates. If I can help break the chains to unleash the creativity of local governments and local officials, and you know what? Local legislators should not be the boogeyman. You can talk about 10,500 governments or whatever else you want to talk about. That's a whole different thing. If you give people, if you empower local, close to the people, legislators, aldermen, mayors, they're going to do a good job for the people. They are going to solve a lot of problems. And if the state pulls the rug out from underneath their funding, they're going to be hamstrung.
Well, we have seen, as we heard earlier in the show, that the legislature, both the Senate and the Assembly, are not thrilled with the idea of the property tax freeze, and they're going to change it.
I haven't talked to too many people who are thrilled with it, quite frankly.
We don't know what we'll end up with in the end, but we will, as you make your way around the state, hopefully weigh in with you again.
Yes.
We'd like to hear from you. John, thank you for being here.
Liz, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
That's just about all the time that we have for this evening's show. Of course, there's much more to come tomorrow night at 8. We will be following the legislature's vote on reappointing members of the Board of Regents, and we'll talk to Business Council President Heather Breschetti about why the business community supports the new Common Core standards. Also, Working Families Party co-chair Bob Master and Jess Wisniewski of Citizen Action will be here. They'll discuss the Fair Elections Rally that is bringing in people from all over the state. And it's Tuesday, which means our insiders will be here to talk about everything from campaign finance to standardized tests to Rob Astorino. It'll be busy. I hope you'll join us for all of it. For more news anytime, you can read our blogs.